Welcome back to another episode of the Zuriel Show. In this episode, we're joined in episode 20 with Andrey Lyubimov. I hope I got that correct. Andrey, introduce yourself to the people, who you are, and simply what you do.
Hi, my name is Andrey Lyubimov. I'm a client-side construction project manager, and maybe even a project manager in a broader sense. So all my life I've been working with property developers and private individuals, managing their commercial and residential developments, refurbishments, fit outs. So yeah, that's what I do for a living.
Lovely, lovely. Now, talk me through who you are in university, and did you see yourself doing what you're doing currently at the moment?
Yeah. Mm, right after leaving school, I entered university to become a linguist and literary critic. But after studying that for 2 years, I came to realize that it will be difficult to make a career in this field. So I quit that particular university, and the same year I entered a different university to study construction project management. And then later on in my career, I did a master's in real estate investment.
Lovely,
So yeah,
lovely.
pretty much from the beginning of my career, I was focused on what I'm still doing.
Yes. Lovely. Now, one thing a lot of graduates struggle with is once they transition into the workspace, that is, they feel like, for the most part, getting their first job, is something a lot of people, can relate with is hard to get for the most part. What would you say was that transition process? How was that for you getting your first job? And would you advise someone who's jumping right off university some tips to jump onto that will help them position themselves much better?
Well, for me, it was quite different because I started working while studying,
Oh, lovely.
and yeah, that was a totally different time and place. Uh,
Okay.
so I don't think it will be
Mm,
fair to relate this to today's
completely.
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I can advise is to first of all uh, try and start gaining hands-on experience whilst you're still studying
Mm,
during your summer break, during your placements. Uh, yeah, just and then start doing networking. Start trying to know people in the business. Grow your network. Yeah, get engaged in all kinds of student or professional associations. Um, mentoring programs, attend conferences and industry related exhibitions and trade fairs.
yeah. Yeah.
So try to be as engaged in extracurricular activity as possible. Because if you think that everything you need for employment you'll get from university, this is 100% wrong. University just gives you a little base on which you start building your career. But yeah,
Yes.
without this base, it's very difficult. But base alone is definitely not enough.
Lovely. Lovely. Now, I'd like to actually to get into comfort zones and what within your professional career, what are some challenges that you experienced within, your journey that took you out of your comfort zone that you feel are worthwhile, that you are open with sharing with the audience?
Hmm. Well, difficult to tell because
Mm,
no, I don't. I don't remember myself going out of my comfort zone too much.
Interesting. All right. Because for the most part, one thing that I see different people within their career as they transition into, from their 20s to their 30s, moving forward, is you have that resilience which you build up, to continue doing what you're doing. Maybe you can
Well,
talk.
you see, if you do what you like,
Yeah.
then you don't have to leave your comfort zone. And if you do something that you don't like, just don't do it. Stop doing that straight away and think what you like, and answer
Yeah.
honestly to yourself. And if choose your university, because choose your degree because this is something you're genuinely passionate about.
Yes.
Because I was passionate about construction, so I enjoyed my university years, and then immediately I moved into career in construction project management, and I genuinely enjoyed every single day. So if you don't feel yourself comfortable in this career and you chose your uni not because of your genuine passion but because of pressure from your peers or your
Yes.
family,
Yes.
just don't do it. Stop doing it straight away, and start doing something you like. Because if you come to your office and whenever you have a spare minute,
Yes.
what do I do during this spare minute? I go on internet and I start watching YouTube about innovative trends in
Yes.
construction. What other
Yes.
people do? They go on Facebook and watch football match scores. But if you care about football match scores, just stop your career in construction and start your career in football.
Yes.
If this is something you're passionate about.
Mm. Just to wrap that point up, maybe just to give my 2 cents on that. There's a whole, as you really pointed out very clearly, there's a whole idea that people being pushed, especially people who are just getting to university, they're being pushed into a career path mainly due to peer pressure in some cases, and in other cases, their parents. And I actually have friends and who've are in the second, third year of university, and they're looking back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this degree I'm doing is not for me at all." And they're looking back and wondering what they're going to be doing for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years of their life. I really like that piece of advice right there. So I'd
Yeah,
like to
and
dive.
while you're
Yeah,
young,
yes.
it's not that painful to make that change. Because the older you
Mm,
grow, the more obligations you build up around yourself,
yes,
and more difficult it will be to change the career.
yes. Lovely. Stunning piece of advice right there. So I want to dive right into the real estate space, which I do not know too much about, and I'm hopefully looking forward to learning a thing or two during our discussion. So, what do you say are some common misconceptions about the real estate space in general in Kenya, or in your experience in the real estate space overall?
Well, one of the biggest misconception is that anybody can do it.
Mm,
This is wrong. To deal with real estate, you do need professional advice.
mm,
It's like, nobody thinks about uh, if I have a problem with my teeth, I go to a dentist. I don't think about fixing myself.
yes.
But with real estate, people think they're smart enough doing real estate,
Mm,
and that's not true. Real estate is as complicated as dentistry,
mm,
if not more.
yes.
That's probably the biggest misconception. Um,
Right. Right.
Also, quite a big misconception is that real estate is very profitable. Again, it is not. Real estate is conservative defensive asset aimed at preserving your wealth and passing it on to generations rather than making abnormal returns.
Mm,
And with this in mind, we need to draw a very clear line between property development and property investment, because property development is high risk, high profit business. And yeah, like Donald Trump went bankrupt 4 or 5 times. It is a very
mm,
high risk business. and don't be afraid to go bankrupt, but don't see property development as don't confuse property development with property investment.
Interesting take.
And don't look at, like, if you develop a property for you to keep, try to think about yourself as wearing two hats. First of all, think about yourself as a developer, and once the asset is up, then you developer sell it to yourself, the investor, and that's how you'll get clear understanding of profitability at each of the stages. So essentially, you'll need to put up two separate financial models, because if you blend them together, whatever you'll get as an outcome will be very misleading.
Right. Now, I like how you made it very clear that it's not the illusion that once you get into the real estate space, you're simply going to be making profit. One thing you'll find is, and I'm sure you probably know more about this than I do, there's a lot of people selling this idea on YouTube with their courses and whatnot. And, just diving into, just touching on that just a bit more, what do you say is the best way to learn about the real estate space, or the best way to learn about the real estate space, not looking into the whole aspect of getting a degree for it. Getting a degree for it.
Well, read books.
Mm.
Books written by professors teaching these degrees.
Interesting. Right. So, if you are willing, what are some projects you have worked on that you really are some of your proud, or you're really happy to have accomplished them as within your career in Kenya?
Yeah, the two capital projects that I accomplished so far, and they are up and running and well functioning. One of them is Ibis Styles Hotel on Raptor Road in Westlands, Nairobi. That's a 280 room hotel. And the other one is One Africa Place, an office building also in Westlands. So those are two of my major projects accomplished so far.
Two very beautiful buildings, if I may add. I've been to both buildings. I really love them. Right.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, yeah, I really like. I'm a fan of your work. Due to lack of a better term. Yes. So let's just dive into it. The elephant in the room. The pandemic. What do you see as some challenges the pandemic has presented for the real estate space overall?
Major challenges. We were hit really hard by the pandemic.
Yes.
Because this both assets that I mentioned, our company keeps owning, and obviously the hotel immediately turned into a biggest loss maker. And the same with the office block, is all the deals that were on the table were just frozen indefinitely. So yeah, we were badly hit by the pandemic.
Yeah. Learning from this.
Yeah, but it learned us a lot. It learned us a lot, because we realized that we started losing money. We thought, okay, in order to survive these difficult times, let's at least see how can we start losing less money.
Yes.
So since all the new projects were put on hold, we focused our time and attention on pretty much on facility management and on maintenance, to see how we can cut down our utility bills, how can we cut down our maintenance costs. And that was quite a eye-opening exercise.
Yes.
And it made us realize that, in the good times, we did notice how inefficiently our buildings were run.
There's a famous quote that says, "A man isn't judged by his success, but when his back is against the wall." And I love that you touched more on the learning experience than, of course, than the joy of the obvious success that your company has. Really, really touching. Now, I'd like to dive deeper. As I said, I'm not too vast with the real estate space. What do you say from a layman's point of view, from someone who's simply viewing the real estate space? What would you say are some common challenges that investors have when it comes to investing in a piece of property as a whole?
Well, the biggest challenge is the lack of control.
Interesting.
Because as a passive investor, you don't really manage anything.
Mm.
And even as an active investor, you don't manage too much. Because if you look
Yes.
at the typical Kenyan form of contract that client signs with the main contractor, it gives client very little control on the project. Because the way the contract is structured, pretty much all the decisions are being made by not by the client but by the architect, who's an external party,
Yes.
right? And it, in this framework, yeah, uh,
It can leave the
yeah,
investor in a vulnerable position.
investor has to entrust all their money
Yes.
without very little protection. Yeah, so matter of trust is essential.
Very well. And thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, just to wrap up this segment of the discussion, what, as you mentioned earlier, the best way to learn, of course, outside going to taking a course on it in university and pursuing a degree on it, you mentioned specific books in which someone could touch on and read over. What 2 to 3 books, or just what's one book that you'd recommend, if you can remember the titles, to read on, to have an accurate idea of what the real estate space, to serve as a foundation of what the real estate space is about?
Difficult to say because that's something I read quite a long time ago. I don't remember names of the books.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but just go and see what was published by reputable publishing houses in the UK and the United States on the topic, and just start reading.
Very well.
And
Very well.
then check up what this particular book, what other sources it refers, and read those sources and so on. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Now, if you don't mind, you mentioned, before we began on the podcast that you have been in Kenya for a couple of years. What made that transition possible for you, if you don't mind sharing with the audience?
So what kind of transition?
Yes, you mentioned that you came into Kenya 6 years ago.
Yep.
6 years ago, you moved into Kenya. What was the inspiration behind that move to come to Kenya?
Yeah, because I really wanted to dive into something different rather than working in European markets, because that was, very predictable and refined and boring. So I wanted to step into something a bit more chaotic, where
Yes.
you can find opportunities.
And I have to commend you for it because, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned earlier, the 2 buildings currently worked on with your organization, One Africa, as well as Ibistels, some of the best, if I may say for myself, buildings across East Africa. Yeah, so kudos to what you're doing, and I look forward to future projects and wishing you success with your future plans, of course.
Thank you very
So,
much.
yes. Now, just to wrap it up for the final
Mhm.
question of the day, what's one piece of advice that you'd give, if it were possible, that is, to give a phone call or travel back in time to your
Okay.
20-year-old self?
Yeah, don't get married so early.
Wait, did you say don't get married so early?
Yeah,
Why is that?
as it's made things more complicated.
Mm,
Let's focus on the career for at least the first 5 years post graduation.
okay, okay. Very straight to the point, and something a lot of people can as
Yeah,
well
because
relate
you
with.
know when you start your career, you really need to work 24/7.
Mm,
Because if you go to office and do only what you're expected to do, you will never progress. You always need to go above and beyond. Not because you're forced to work long hours, but because you're passionate about what you do and because you want to make a change in the organization. And then your superiors will notice this effort and will notice the
yeah,
benefits you creating in the organization, and they'll start promoting you.
yes. Because at the end of the day, hard work will always beat talent or
Yeah,
passion
yeah,
at the end of the day. Very well put. Thank you very much, Andre, for being on the show. I know I said that was the last question, but just one last, very final question.
okay.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was that was a great
Thank you.
experience. Thank you.
And once again, thank you for making time out of your very busy schedule to be here. It means a lot to me, at the team at Zuriel, and the audience as a whole. Could you let the people know how they can get in touch with you? How to maybe learn more about your organization, what you do, and
Yeah, they
that
can
kind
they
of
can
thing.
look me up on LinkedIn. That would probably be the easiest.
Yes. Okay. So the name right there, you can
Yeah.
search him up right there on LinkedIn. Very open, friendly, and an amazing individual. I can say that open-heartedly. So this has been episode 20 of the Zuriel podcast. Thank you all. Thank you, listeners and the audience, for making it all the way until the end. Be sure to like, share this with your friends, and subscribe down below. Have a
Thank you very
good
much.
one, and may God bless you all. Goodbye.